I'm Paul Salem, the Vice President for Policy and Research at the Middle East Institute here in Washington, D.C. And we've done a lot of work on the issue of advice for the next President of the United States. We look at U.S. interests and try to base U.S. policy recommendations on that. The key U.S. interests in the Middle East are the free flow of oil, the non-proliferation of nuclear and chemical weapons, and thirdly, the war on terror. The first two interests are doing well. The flow of oil is generally proceeding. The oil prices are low. The second interest, the proliferation of nuclear weapons, has largely been contained, particularly after the nuclear deal with Iran. But the third problem of terrorism is bad and getting worse. Our recommendations for the next administration are linked to these three interests. First of all, maintain the presence in the Gulf in order to ensure the free flow of energy to world markets. Secondly, maintain and monitor the nuclear deal with Iran to make sure that Iran does not return to a weapons program. Thirdly, the issue of terrorism is the one that's most challenging and complex. And there are a number of levels. One level is the obvious one of fighting ISIS and Al-Qaeda, mainly in Iraq and Syria. That is something that the Obama administration has already made some progress on in Iraq. And the next administration should continue that, the war on Mosul, the war on Raqqa, and things of that nature. But that is not enough. The second level is to make sure that there is a political resolution of the main issues in Iraq and a political resolution for the main issues in Syria. In Iraq, there is a constitution which includes the Kurds, Shiite Arabs, the Sunni Arabs. There are some problems over several issues, but there is a process that should be encouraged and that can make progress. The problem is mainly in Syria, where there is no political process. There is only a military process, and that alone will not work. So there needs to be more attention to the political solution in Syria. Can President Trump and President Putin make progress? We don't know. The third level is the level of regional conflict. Iran and many of its neighbors indeed are in conflict. It's become a Sunni-Shia conflict, it's become a geopolitical conflict, and this has to be addressed. The US administration has to recognize that trying to resolve the terrorism issue without resolving the problems or some of the conflict between Iran and its neighbors will not be possible. Again, can a US administration working with Russia, China and other players, and Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, make progress in stabilizing the regional system or not? So those are some of the recommendations. They are not easy, and it's still very unclear if President Trump will have a team of high advisors and ministers in place which could implement such a complex policy. I think the relations with Kurdistan in Iraq are very good and solid. That is a relationship that goes beyond the Republican or the Democratic Party, goes beyond the White House, it's in the Congress and in public opinion as well. So I think that relationship is solid. There's also a strong leaning towards the Kurds in Syria. They've played a very important role in the fight against ISIS. Obviously, there are tensions between the Kurds in Syria and Turkey. That needs to be addressed. There's tensions even between the Kurds in Syria and some in the Syrian opposition and so on. But in general, the US-Kurdish relationship is very positive and very strong and is not at all in jeopardy. And I think the next administration will continue in that direction.